Welcome to this Prepare for IELTS essay, in which we're going to give you all the strategies you need to deal with discussion plus opinion questions. These questions are very common and we have lots of different ways of tackling them. It's probably best for you to look at these options and decide which one you'd like best. So let's get on with the options that we've got. And firstly, we need to explain that there are three variables when we're dealing with this type of question. Firstly, you can either write that you prefer one of the two options, or you can write from a consensus position that both options have merit and we need to put the two together to find a solution which includes both of them. So that's the first thing. The second thing, we need to decide if we want to write evidence-led or thesis-led. So are you going to put your opinion in the introduction? That's thesis-led. Or are you going to put your opinion in the conclusion? That's evidence-led. And thirdly, we need to decide if we're writing option by option or point by point. Option by option is easier, usually. It's where you write about one of the two options, then you write about the second one. Point by point is you write about both options as they are connected to one particular issue, and then you do the same with a second and maybe a third issue. That's harder. It can bring you great rewards. It's our fifth option, so if you can stick around till the end of the video, you'll see what we mean by that. So firstly, we're looking at writing where you prefer one option, where it's evidence-led, and where you're writing option by option. Let's see how we would do this. So firstly, you need to probably comment on the general topic or the issue. You might paraphrase the question, you might paraphrase the alternatives, and include a thesis statement indicating that you plan to discuss both alternatives. Critically, not giving your position, not giving your opinion here, because this is evidence-led. We will come to that in the conclusion. In your main paragraph, you describe and explain the alternative which you generally disagree with. You've still got to write about it, even though you prefer the other alternative. Then in the second main body paragraph, describe and explain the alternative which you generally agree with, maybe including weaknesses of the alternative which you generally disagree with, maybe writing a little bit more in this paragraph. And then in your conclusion, state your opinion. You must do that in the conclusion because we haven't done it in the introduction. This is evidence-led. So state your conclusion, indicating that you prefer one alternative, but not completely disagreeing with the other alternative. We'll come back to that point later. It's not a good idea to say that one of these alternatives is brilliant, perfect, and the other is terrible. Don't do that. You might support your opinion, you might express a hope, a wish, a worry, a fear, or prediction about the future. And what do we think about this strategy? Well, it's a good structure for answers when you want to show that one alternative is better than the other, and it's very important to indicate that the second option or alternative has some merit if you answer this. So this is quite a reasonable way of answering this question. Let's have a look at an example. Some students who complete secondary school go to university. Others take a gap year during which they may travel, do voluntary work, or gain experience. So these are the two options. Discuss these two options and decide which is the better alternative. So you can see this is clearly a discussion plus opinion question. It's asking you to discuss both and say which is better. So let's start with our introduction, and you can start your essay by paraphrasing the two alternatives. So if you're good at rewriting the question in a different way, you can do this. One problem with this is it can make your introduction quite long. As you can see here, this is quite a long introduction. In the thesis statement for an evidence-led essay, you can explain that the issue is important and that it should be discussed. You can indicate that you will deal with these two options or alternatives, but you should not include your position, your opinion, in the introduction if it's evidence-led. Moving on to the first main paragraph, and if you prefer one alternative, then your first main body paragraph can describe the alternative which you do not generally support. You do not generally support. You should start this paragraph with a clear topic sentence which explains that the alternative has strengths, benefits, merits, and you can support this with arguments. You can see that we've used various arguments to support this. Your arguments can have further support or explanation, or they can just be a single sentence. It is possible to write less about this alternative than about the alternative you prefer. So we haven't really done that here, but if you want to indicate that you prefer one of the alternatives, then you can start by writing about the other one, and you can have a slightly shorter paragraph or fewer arguments. Moving now to the second main body paragraph, and again we need to start with a topic sentence showing that this alternative has benefits. You can support with arguments again. And you can see this is a paragraph with a similar structure to the first one. Here we've had added explanation to one of the arguments. Moving on to the conclusion, and it's really important that you begin the conclusion by stating your position. So here we have done that. Although there may be some individuals for whom going straight to university is the right decision, in the main, I would recommend a gap year. Okay, so we've said that one alternative is better, but it's very important we haven't said the other one is completely wrong. And a sentence with a clause of concession, so beginning with although, is really good here because it lets you refer to both alternatives and indicate which one you prefer, but also mentioning the other one. You can then make brief comments about both alternatives to support your position, that one is better, but both have some merit. And you can finish the essay with a wish which supports your position. This is often a good idea. And now you're probably thinking, why can't I just fully support one of the alternatives? And the reason for that is that it makes your essay seem quite illogical. It's not impossible to do this, but I really don't recommend it. If you write a main body paragraph about one of the alternatives and then indicate that this alternative is completely wrong, there doesn't seem much point or much reason for that paragraph where you've explained its benefits. So your main body paragraph doesn't really fit with your position and the position that you include in your conclusion. It just makes for a better essay if you don't completely rule out, completely disagree with one of the positions. You can say that one of the positions is generally right, but don't say that it's always right. So now on to our second strategy, and if you can remember, I was talking before about consensus, and a consensus position is where you find equal support for both sides, for both alternatives. You find a position which includes both of them fairly equally. This is also evidence-led, so our opinion will be in the conclusion, and it's also option by option, so we're writing about one option, then the second option. So many similarities to what we spoke about before: introduction, commenting on the topic, paraphrasing the question, and including a thesis statement indicating your plan to discuss both alternatives, but not giving your position. Then in the main body paragraph, describe and explain the first alternative, maybe including weaknesses of the second one. And then in the second main body paragraph, describe and explain the second alternative and possibly including weaknesses of the first alternative. In your conclusion, you need to state your opinion that both alternatives are relevant or that combining the alternatives is a sensible strategy. And that's often what we mean by consensus, finding something which you can support, which includes both of the options. You can support this position and, as usual, maybe express a hope, a wish, a worry, a fear, or a prediction. And this is a good structure when you want to give this consensus answer, showing that both alternatives are relevant and right, or showing that they can be combined, and doing this is sensible. So let's have a look at examples of this type of essay. Some people believe that lowering the speed limit is the best way to improve road safety. Others think that there are other ways to make roads safer. Discuss these two options and give your opinion. You can see this is definitely a discussion plus opinion question. So starting our introduction, and we can start with a general comment about the situation. This comment can show how important the issue is. It can be quite a general comment, so not really directly related to the question, but related to a wider, more general issue, such as road safety. We can then paraphrase the alternatives, and thesis statement in an evidence-led essay can indicate that you plan to answer the question, or can indicate that it's important to discuss this issue, but you shouldn't include your position, your opinion here. You start your first main paragraph with a clear topic sentence, which indicates that you will discuss the first alternative. And you can support this topic sentence with explanation. You can also support it with expert opinion. And you can include a negative evaluation. So here we've evaluated this alternative negatively. We've seen something wrong with it, some reason why it's not perfect. If you include a negative evaluation in this type of essay, you should do it for both alternatives, not just for one of them. So as you'll see soon, we have included a negative evaluation for the second alternative as well. Second main body paragraph, again, clear topic sentence, which indicates that you will discuss this alternative, this second alternative. You can give suggestions or explanations to support your topic sentence. And you can support some of your suggestions with explanation. And if you included negative evaluation for the first alternative, we did, then it's a very good idea to include it for the second one, and that's what we've done here. So the conclusion, and we can begin the conclusion by stating this consensus opinion. You need to indicate that a combination of alternatives is a good idea. So here we've got, I cannot see why a wide range of measures should not be brought in. So it's good to bring in a wide range of measures, including the measures we discussed, including lowering the speed limit and other alternatives as well. So this makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't you do all of these? This question really lends itself to this consensus view that both alternatives can be combined, and that makes sense. You can add a comment to support or explain this position. Remember that we have only just given our position for the first time, so you might want to explain it in more detail. And you can finish your essay with a hope connected to your thesis. It's often a good idea. And now we're up to our third strategy. So this is consensus, where again we combine the two alternatives into a position which makes sense. This is thesis led, so we're going to explain our position in the introduction, and it's still option by option, so we're still writing about one alternative then the next one. So there is a little bit of a change in the introduction here, so we still want to probably start by commenting on the topic, maybe by paraphrasing the alternatives, and then our thesis statement, and we need in our thesis statement to indicate the opinion. Yes, we've got an opinion here that both options, both alternatives have merits or benefits or situations when they are right. So we are putting our position in the introduction, and that position is that both of these alternatives make sense and they probably can be combined. Main paragraph 1, so you describe and explain the strength of the first alternative, possibly including areas or situations where the second one is better or stronger. In the second main body paragraph, you do the same, describe and explain the strengths of the second alternative, and again, maybe including areas or situations where the first one is better or stronger, and then in your conclusion, you can repeat your position. That's the position that we gave in the introduction, that both alternatives have merit, or that they may be combined, and you might support this and express a hope, a wish, a worry, a fear, or a prediction about the future. And this is a good structure when you want to show that both alternatives have merit and can be combined. And a lot of people like to get their position in the introduction, so they like to write consensus essays, and they like to write consensus essays which are thesis-led. So I think this is a good strategy. Let's have a look at examples. Some experts say that the best sports stars, artists, and scientists are born with great talent which other people do not have. Other experts say that any child can learn to be one of the best in these areas. Discuss both these views and give your own opinion. So you can see this is definitely discuss plus opinion. Let's have a look. And we'll start with the introduction. And you can start by restating the alternatives and by indicating that the issue is important. So this often involves paraphrasing. So if you are not very happy about a general statement and about paraphrasing, you can often combine the two, where you're essentially paraphrasing the question but also referring to the general situation, because the question refers to the general situation. This is thesis-led, so you should include your position in the thesis statement. And here we've got, it seems almost certain that gifted individuals owe their brilliance both to their upbringing and their genetic makeup. So you can see that we are going for consensus here. We're saying that both of these factors matter. And obviously a consensus position brings the two alternatives together, indicating that they both have merit. On to the first main body paragraph, and you should start each main body paragraph with a topic sentence indicating which alternative you will write about in that paragraph. And you can support your topic sentence with evidence from the real world and also with examples. On to the second main body paragraph, again starting with a clear topic sentence indicating which alternative you're writing about. Supporting maybe with explanation. You can also support with evidence from experts. And because this is consensus, it's good to show how the two alternatives, that's genes and environment, combine, and you can often do this at the end of your second main body paragraph. On to your conclusion, and start by restating your consensus opinion or by explaining that a position which focuses on just one alternative is wrong or mistaken. And you can finish with a comment which further supports and explains your position. We could also put a wish or a hope in here, or a prediction, but that looks like quite a long conclusion already, so we probably don't need anything else. Another example of this strategy: some see health as purely physical, whereas others consider it to be mainly mental, emotional, and social. Discuss both sides of this question and give your opinion. This question is not so different from the last one. Let's have a look at how we might answer it. So starting our introduction, and we can start with a short comment on the very general issue, such as health. So your first comment can be quite general if it's quite short. It's often a good idea to paraphrase the alternatives, as we've already seen. And in a thesis-led essay, you need to include your position in the thesis statement. A consensus position brings the two alternatives together, indicating they both have merit or benefits. And that's what's happened here. Moving on to the first main body paragraph. Again, start each main paragraph with a clear topic sentence indicating which alternatives you will write about. You can add points which support your topic sentence. And you can add explanation to support the points that you make. On to the second main body paragraph. Again, clear topic sentence indicating which alternative you're writing about. You can add points which support your topic sentence. And again, explanation can support the points that you make. And on to the conclusion. You can restate your consensus position or explain that a position which focuses on just one alternative is wrong or mistaken. You can add a comment which further supports and explains your consensus position. And you can end your essay with a hope which connects to your position. This is usually a good idea. Okay, let's move on to our fourth strategy. Don't panic, there are only 5. And here we are showing how you can write an essay where you prefer one option. So we don't have a consensus here, we prefer one option. This is thesis-led, so we're going to give our position in the introduction, and it's still option by option. So the introduction, probably comment on the topic or the issue, probably paraphrase the question or paraphrase the alternatives, and include a thesis statement indicating your opinion that one alternative is generally better, but not that one alternative is completely better. In your first main body paragraph, you'll describe and explain the strengths of the alternative you do not prefer, maybe in a shorter paragraph, and then in your second main body paragraph, you'll describe and explain the strengths of the alternative you actually prefer, maybe including weaknesses of the option that you do not like so much, the option that was in main paragraph 1. And possibly main paragraph 3, yes, you might have an extra paragraph here, where again you describe and explain strengths of the alternative you prefer, possibly again including weaknesses of the option you do not prefer. So one option here is to have 3 main body paragraphs, 2 of which support the position you prefer, and 1 supporting the position that you don't prefer. That's quite hard to do, and you can run out of time. So generally, I would recommend just 2 main body paragraphs, unless you are able to write quickly and accurately at a high level. In your conclusion, you can restate your opinion and indicate that you prefer one option but not completely disagreeing with the other one, and you can support your opinion, and our usual favourite, you may have a hope, a wish, a worry, a fear, or a prediction. And this is quite a good structure when you have more to write about one alternative than the other. So if you see the 2 options, think that you don't really have much to write about one of them, then it might be a good idea for you to write from the position that you prefer the other one, because you have more to write about. Let's look at an example. Some people say that when learning a foreign language, Having a teacher whose first language is the same as the students is the most effective approach. Others think that it is better to be taught by someone who is a native speaker of the language which is being learned. Discuss both of these possibilities and give your opinion. So clearly, discussion plus opinion here. Let's have a look. So you can start by referring to the general topic, as we've done here. And it's often good to include a comment about the importance of the question or the importance of the issue. Something else can go in your introduction. And in a thesis-led essay, you need to state your position in the thesis statement. So we've done that here. Using a sentence with a clause of concession that's beginning with although or even though, this is a great idea because it allows you to refer to both alternatives and to express a preference. That's what we want to do here. We want to say that one option is better than the other one, but we want to refer to both. So a sentence beginning with although, and then you refer to the weaker option, and then in your main clause you refer to the stronger option. In your first main body paragraph, usually better to start by writing about the alternative you do not prefer, so the weaker alternative. Paragraphs in the main body should start with a clear topic sentence which supports your position, and you can support the topic sentence with explanation, and also by referring to possible results, as we've done here. Again, the second main body paragraph needs to start with a clear topic sentence which supports your position, so which refers to the second alternative. We can use arguments to support this topic sentence. And we can also support some of these arguments with explanation or evaluation. And in your conclusion, you can start it with a general comment, though you can write a very strong essay without this. You need to restate your position, trying not to indicate that your preferred alternative is always right. So it's a good idea to try and indicate that at least in some situations, in some occasions, the other alternative has some merit or some strength. And ending your essay with a wish or hope connected to your position, usually a good idea. And the moment you've all been waiting for, our final strategy is strategy 5, and this is where you prefer one option. It's thesis-led and it's point by point. So let's have a look at what that means. So in the introduction, comment on the topic, paraphrase the alternatives, and include a thesis statement indicating your opinion that one alternative is generally, but not completely better. So this is thesis-led. In the first main paragraph, you discuss the strengths of both alternatives. Yes, both alternatives connected to one point or area. You start with the alternative you do not prefer and you finish with the preferred alternative. You do the same in main body paragraph 2. So you discuss the strengths of both alternatives connected to a second point. Again, starting with the alternative you don't prefer, finishing with the preferred alternative. And you may, if you are a fast writer and very good, have a paragraph 3 where you do this, referring to a third point or area. Again, starting with the alternative you do not prefer. In your conclusion, you can repeat your opinion, you can support your opinion, and as usual, we do like expressing a hope, a wish, maybe a worry, a fear, or a prediction. So this is a good structure when you can write about 2 or more separate points. And this can also work with a consensus essay. So we're not showing a consensus essay, but it can work just as well. So you're probably dying to find out how this works. Let's have a look at an example. In some countries, workers have to retire when they reach a certain age, such as 65. In other parts of the world, they are encouraged to continue working for as long as they want. Discuss these two options and decide which is the better alternative. So clearly, discussion plus opinion. Let's have a look. So we can start the essay by stating that there is a disagreement over this issue. So if you would like to use the word contentious, it's quite a nice adjective to use, or you can indicate that different people have different positions. You can then refer to the alternative which you do not agree with, and you can end by referring to the alternative which you generally support. Remember that we are going to show that one option or alternative is better than the other, but we're not going to say that one of these options is always better than the other or always right. Moving on to the first main body paragraph, and we can see that in this type of essay, each main body paragraph focuses on both alternatives in a particular area, such as the economy, and this is made very clear at the beginning of the paragraph. You can use the first part of a main body paragraph to put forward an argument for the alternative you disagree with, and use the second part of the paragraph to put forward an argument which refutes it. So if you refute something, you take your opponent's argument and you show that it is wrong. So we're going to refute it and support the alternative that we prefer. Moving on to the next main body paragraph. This focuses on one area, and this is the ability to do the job, and that's made clear at the beginning. So we need to start with arguments for the alternative that we do not prefer, followed by a refutation of this argument, or arguments for the option or alternative that we do prefer. It's possible to start the conclusion by referring to the alternative you generally disagree with, and you can certainly write a strong essay without doing this. You can then restate your position. And often good to end with a hope or a wish which connects to your position. Well done if you've stayed till the end of that video. You can see lots of strategies. We've slightly overcomplicated it, but there are basic questions to ask yourself. Are you going to write thesis-led, or are you going to put your opinion in the conclusion and write evidence-led? Are you going to try and find some sort of consensus, or are you going to show that you prefer one option? That will probably depend on the question, because sometimes, such as the nature-nurture debate, it's just easier to find a consensus, and other times it isn't. And are you brave enough to go point by point, or are you going to stick with topic by topic? Both can work really well. There's a good chance you'll get a discussion plus opinion question in the exam, and if you do, we hope it goes really well. We look forward to seeing you soon, and thank you for watching.